Now, we all know that there's a jobs emergency in our country, but here's some good news. Plans are underfoot to provide 2 million young Africans with work opportunities in the tech space. Now, that's over the next 10 years. Let's discuss this further with Arthur Goldstuck, who is the Chief Executive of Worldwide Worx. Thank you very much for your time this morning, Arthur. Explain to us how exactly this is going to work. How are we going to be integrating that many young Africans into the tech space?
Thank you, Rofiwa. The important thing is the context for this program. When you look at the global tech skills shortage and the fact that Africa has got the highest proportion of young people of any continent in the world, you start seeing the possibility of bringing those two factors together. And also there are predictions that in the next 30 years, the continent will start producing something like 30 million graduates a year. And suddenly you see a solution to the skills shortage in the distance. So what people are trying to do now is match the skills that currently exist and the potential skills to the need for jobs out there. So a company called or at least a group called the African Leadership Group has partnered with Amazon Web Services to create an online platform called The Room. And The Room is where they'll be able to match the skills of young Africans to the need for tech skills across the world. And the founder, Fred Swaneker from Ghana, says that he believes that right now they would be able to match 2 million young Africans to global work opportunities. In the future, that number is expected to grow dramatically. And he expects that something like 10 to 20 million people from around the world, not just Africa, can eventually be matched to skills, opportunities, and needs globally. But the point is that it's starting in Africa where the greatest potential lies for the future.
No, absolutely. Now, one listening to this conversation, Arthur, would wonder why this is only happening now and why it's not an initiative that could have been initiated a lot earlier, given that we've been seeing technological advancements globally for a while now. In Africa, was it an issue of resources? Was it an issue of waiting for partnerships, like you've just mentioned, that were holding us back from being where we are now?
It's really a question of all of those issues coming together. But in particular, it was the realization in the last few years that a global tech skill shortage was emerging, especially in areas like cybersecurity and artificial intelligence. The need there has become apparent only in the last 3 or 4 years to the extent that people are aware of it now. And that need will keep growing in the coming years. So already for some years, a lot of organizations have started initiatives to train people, to create opportunities, and the like. Samsung, for example, already in 2018, initiated a project to train young South Africans in particular. They allocated something like 280 million rand to training over the following 5 to 7 years. And then Google has got a range of initiatives, especially to try and bring women into the tech space as well, because their research has shown that something like 58% of small business entrepreneurs across the continent are women, and they tend to be excluded from these kinds of opportunities. So they've introduced a range of funding initiatives, including something called the Impact Challenge for Women and Girls. And they selected 34 funding recipients in the last round, giving them significant funding to allow them to take their ideas forward. Now, 34 sounds like a small amount. And when you look at the Samsung initiative, most recently, they saw something like 233 unemployed young people benefit from software development training in the last couple of years. So again, that sounds like a small number. But when you add it up and you add the impact of these investments, every one of those women getting that funding, every one of these programmers who are being trained to start with, represents a far broader ecosystem of beneficiaries, their families, their friends, their circle of contacts all get drawn into this ecosystem of skills development. They spread the word further. And then at the top of that hierarchy, you could say, in terms of number of people benefiting, you have something like the Room from African Leadership Group and Amazon Web Services, where millions of people potentially could benefit. But it has to start somewhere, and all of these organizations are starting or have started or are planning initiatives, and you're going to see more and more of this kind of thing from other major tech organizations globally, but also locally. A lot of startups locally are involved in skills development initiatives.
And of course, we're going to be seeing more and more, Arthur, as you mentioned, because the skills potential on the African continent is quite vast.
Absolutely. There's a fantastic example which I wrote about in my column in the Sunday Times today about a Cape Town startup called Zindi, which was established 4 years ago. And their intention was to make data science and artificial intelligence skills from Africa accessible to companies in Africa, but also globally, ultimately. And their idea is to crowdsource problems that organizations have, that companies want to put up as challenges to this community that Zindi has established. So they put the challenge out there, and they have a user base of something like 40,000 data science and artificial intelligence specialists, or people who feel that they have skills but haven't had the opportunity to exercise those skills. So even kids learning things like data science or artificial intelligence or machine learning in their bedrooms even, who feel that they need just to showcase their skills, can go onto the Zindi platform and look at one of these challenges. So far, there have been 100 challenges that have been met by the Zindi community, and they can then pitch their idea or their approach, and the company can decide whether they want to use that particular solution or that particular person. So again, thousands of people potentially benefiting, although it starts with those 100 solutions. It has to start somewhere. But what Zindi especially showcases is the vast extent of talent available across this continent.
No, absolutely. Arthur, what are these investors or the companies that are coming aboard creating partnerships to offer these opportunities to young Africans, focusing on in terms of sectors within the tech industry? Are we looking at a growth in e-commerce here, fintech, health tech? Where is the focus being zoned in?
The broad answer to that is that they're looking for solutions to societal problems. But when you drill down into it, they're also simply looking for training people in programming, software development, and the like, but also in recognizing the availability of skills and bringing those skills into the formal sector. So a lot of these organizations, like Amazon Web Services, for example, see it as a contribution to society. They see it as a force for good rather than specifically wanting to meet commercial objectives. And then in the long term, of course, by engaging in these initiatives, they do ultimately meet their own commercial objectives as well, because they are creating this incredible talent pool and a skills pool. And it's not specific to a particular sector, but really having the broad skills that can take you into any sector.
No, absolutely. And then just a final thought from you, Arthur. The auctioning of spectrum here in South Africa, the court case between Telkom and eNCA that's finally come to an end, would attract any investor to come forth and offer opportunities on our shores as well, whether it be local corporates or international corporates.
That's a very good insight, because the final settling of the spectrum auction and the allocation of it essentially removes a massive roadblock to technology and communication development in South Africa. And it's bound to open up far more opportunities, but also attract far more organizations to come to a country that is suddenly seen as open to competition.
Yeah, absolutely. Arthur Goldstuck, thank you very much for talking to us this morning. He's the CEO of Worldwide Worx, talking to us there about those opportunities that are being offered to young Africans to upskill themselves in the technological space.